If you ever had a disagreement with a woke activist on social media, their favorite terms to describe any person that disagrees with them is either coon or white supremacist. Coon or white supremacist. If a black person disagrees with them, they will label them a coon. If a white person disagrees with them, they will label them a white supremacist for simply disagreeing with them. The biggest problem I have with a lot of woke activists is they don't understand how to agree to disagree. Instead of simply saying you have a different opinion than I do and moving on, they have to jump to you're a coon, you're a coon, you're a coon. And I wanted to talk about this word coon. I see a lot of younger people throwing around this term without realizing where it comes from. The word coon comes from slavery. White slave masters called black slaves coon as short for raccoon. This is a very oppressive term, a very racial term. But a lot of these younger people will throw around this term without realizing where it comes from. You can't call yourself pro-black if you're calling another black person a coon. If you're calling another black person a coon, you are not pro-black. You are anti-black. But a lot of these young woke activists will call any black person a coon who disagrees with them. It doesn't even matter what the topic of conversation is. If you go on Twitter, if you go on Facebook, if you go on any one of these social media platforms, and you disagree with a woke activist, they're going to call you a coon. This is their favorite word to call any black person who disagrees with them. I can't stand a hypocrite. I can't stand someone who contradicts themselves. If you're using a term that was used by white oppressors to describe another black person, you are promoting white supremacy. Woke activists will always accuse people of promoting white supremacy, but they're actually promoting white supremacy. If you're calling another black person a coon, you're promoting white supremacy. So when I see a lot of these woke activists always saying they're against white supremacy, but yet they'll call another black person a coon at the drop of a hat. My message to a lot of these young woke people: stop being hypocrites. Start practicing what you're preaching. If you're going to tell me that racism is wrong, then you need to practice what you preach. You can't, in all seriousness, call yourself an anti-racist activist. This is what woke activists call themselves, anti-racist activists. And then in the same breath, call another black person a coon. And most of the time when they use this term, it's just basic disagreements. It doesn't make any sense. A lot of these younger people are so hypocritical, I can't take their activism seriously. As black people, we have different opinions like any other race. The problem I have with a lot of today's pro-blacks is they have a group thinking mentality. If you don't go along with their group thinking mentality, you're a coon. You're a house nigga. They preach more hatred against other black people than they do against whites. This is why I don't support today's pro-blacks. I support the old school pro-blacks. The old school pro-blacks understood what black people were really about, what unity was really about, what black pride was really about. They were about bringing black people together, not dividing black people. Today's pro-blacks are all about dividing black people. All they do is run around calling each other coons and house niggas. It's completely ignorant. I think as older black people, we need to teach these younger people how to respect themselves and how to respect each other. Because if you're running around calling another black person a coon, you're not pro-black, you're anti-black. We need to teach them what being pro-black is really about. A lot of these younger people, they're listening to these idiots like Tariq Nasheed and Robert Perkins,
who do nothing but call people coons every 5 seconds. These people are not pro-black. They're just internet idiots saying whatever they can say to get attention. People need to wake up and realize what real black pride is. And if you're calling another black person a coon, if you're demonizing another black person because they disagree with your group thinking mentality, you're not pro-black, you're anti-black. And this is why I don't support a lot of these younger pro-blacks. They don't give a damn about black people. They only care about promoting the victim mentality. And any person that doesn't go with their victim mentality, you're a coon and you're a house nigga. I just think the fuckery needs to stop. The ignorance needs to stop. I mean, they're calling anybody a coon. Especially these idiots on YouTube. YouTube pro-blacks are the most ignorant motherfuckers on the planet. All they do is do videos calling people coons and house niggas. And you're calling yourself pro-black? You're calling yourself a black person that has black pride. Being pro-black is about loving other black people. It's about bringing black people together. It's about having pride for your culture and your people. A lot of today's generation have taken something that used to be positive and they turned it into something negative. Being pro-black used to be something positive. It used to be something that brought people together. But today's generation has taken something and turned it into something negative. They've turned it into something divisive. This is why a lot of people don't even want to call themselves pro-black no more, because a lot of these ignorant fools have destroyed the reputation of being pro-black. The term pro-black just means an idiot that runs around calling people coons. That's what the younger generation has turned it into. So I think people need to stop using this term, start respecting each other, start loving each other as black people. How can you expect other races to respect us if we don't respect ourselves? As black people, if we don't respect ourselves, how can we expect other races to respect us? You can't go around saying, oh, the white man this and the white man that, but you're not respecting other black people. If all you're doing is going around demonizing other black people, calling them coons, calling them tokens, calling them house niggas, calling them Uncle Toms. And what I notice is the people being called Uncle Toms, the people being called coons, are usually educated black people who are successful. And this is why a lot of today's pro-blacks have a crabs in a barrel mentality. Because as soon as they see another black person being successful, doing good for themselves, they'll call them a coon. They'll call them a sellout. That's a crabs in a barrel mentality. This type of crabs in a barrel mentality is destroying the black community. It's destroying us economically and socially. If I see another black person that's successful, that's doing good for himself, I'm going to congratulate him. I'm going to look at him and say to myself, that's where I want to be. That's the level that I want to be on. I'm not going to look at him and say, oh, that's a coon. Oh, he just selling out for the white man. The nonsense needs to stop. This crabs in the barrel, ignorant mentality needs to stop. And it needs to be called out for what it is. You notice they're not calling the thugs and gangbangers coons. They're not calling them coons. They're not calling the Bloods and Crips coons. This is a group of people that kills thousands of black people every year, but they're not called coons. A lot of pro-blacks will defend the Bloods and Crips and make excuses for their fuckery. You're going to defend somebody that's killing black people every day, but you're going to call an educated black person, a successful black person, a coon. You're going to call somebody a coon who's doing good for themselves. You're going to call somebody a coon who doesn't follow your group thinking mentality. A lot of today's pro-blacks have a victim mentality. They have a group thinking mentality. And if you don't go along with this group thinking mentality, you're going to be called a coon, you're going to be called a sellout, you're going to be called an Uncle Tom. This is why the nonsense needs to stop. As black people, we need to start loving each other. We need to start respecting each other. And most importantly, we need to start realizing that we have different opinions like any other race. I have a lot of different opinions than most black people. When it comes to religion, when it comes to politics, I have different points of view than the majority of black people. And I'm usually called a coon or a house nigga because I don't go along with the group thinking mentality. Now, I don't care about being called a coon. But there's a lot of younger black people who are doing good for themselves, who may get discouraged by being called a coon, and that may stop them from being successful. That may stop them from going into the right direction. That's why I tell a lot of these younger people, you have to be yourself. Stop worrying about fitting in with the in crowd. Stop worrying about fitting in with the majority. If you be yourself and follow your own lead, you're going to be successful. You're going to be successful in life. Start being a wolf and stop being a sheep. That's why the nonsense needs to stop. As black people, we need to start loving each other. We need to start respecting each other. Stop calling each other coons. Stop calling each other house niggas. And let's come together and be united. So I think we need to stop using this term. We need to stop disrespecting and demonizing other black people for simply having a different opinion. As adults, we should have different opinions and respect people's different opinions without demonizing them and without hating against them. Especially when it's your own fellow black man, your own fellow black woman. So the nonsense needs to stop. A lot of people have different opinions about this topic. Leave a comment, rate, and subscribe.